which is quite impressive, as Byron indicated. Definitely don't sell Kay Walsh short. You can see her in quite a few other films. She's in Which We Serve, This Happy Breed, and was also in with Alec Guinness in a movie called The Horse's Mouth, in which Alec Guinness portrayed a rather offbeat sculptor, artist, painter, you name it. He cuts quite a figure in that film.
And interesting to see Alec Guinness in this kind of a role, because that's not the kind of role although he did a lot of costume, he had a lot of makeup on and did a variety of characters in Kind Hearts and Coronets, which was not a David Lean film. He also played King Faisal, or Prince Faisal at the time, in Lawrence of Arabia. Apparently he had a kind of a difficult time. This was the first film, Oliver Twist, that he made with David Lean, and he made several others, including Dr. Zhivago. He had a supporting role in Dr. Zhivago, supporting role in Lawrence of Arabia, and in other films. But apparently, even though Lean apparently considered Alec Guinness to be his lucky charm, as he described it, Guinness had a somewhat trying relationship working with him sometimes.
Yeah, Byron, I hate to contradict you, but you're not quite right about being the first film that he did with Lean. He was in Great Expectations. He played Herbert Pocket.
I stand corrected.
Sorry.
I'm sitting at the foot of the master.
Alec Guinness, definitely looking up some of the information that I was trying to glean in order to kind of get it straight in my head, his career from beginning to end. I couldn't help but notice that the stuff he did with David Lean was very prominent in most of the articles that I read. And they were really kind of short-selling his comedic abilities, which always struck me as being pretty sensational.
Oh, yeah,
you watch The Lavender Hill Mob, you watch The Captain's Paradise, where he has a
wife in every port.
Yeah, well, not quite every, but close. And he also was in The Man in the White Suit, in which he created a piece of material which never got dirty. And of course, the clothing industry thought this was disastrous. And it never wore out either. And they wanted him and the formula put to rest and never to be seen again. Katie Mosier.
Barry, you'll appreciate this. I was watching it and I saw his name at the beginning and something else. I was like, why do I know that guy's name? And I was going to ask if you hadn't talked about him. Like, why do I know him? And then I looked him up on IMDb, and of course he's in Star Wars. But and I was like, I have to
there's a rumor that Alec Guinness suggested that Obi-Wan Kenobi be killed in the first film because he hated it so much.
Oh, wow. And
I think he would roll over in his grave to know that the Oscar winner for Bridge on the River Kwai, and and the guy who was in Our Man in Havana, that he would be remembered as somebody who was in Star Wars.
But now I will go check out all his other movies.
Yeah, well, I recommend Our Man in Havana, which also has a remarkable performance by Ernie Kovacs. It's based on a Graham Greene novel about a vacuum cleaner who was really a British spy in Havana. One thing I wanted to mention, which now I can't remember what it was that I wanted to mention, something. We went down that Alec Guinness path. Oh, I know what it is. It's very interesting that film critics seem to fall into a couple of different categories. There are those who think highly of Lean because of his epics. And I think today he's probably remembered most for his epics. In his later years, he made a few films with long gaps in between. But he made, of course, Lawrence of Arabia, Bridge on the River Kwai, Dr. Zhivago, and A Passage to India, which are big films. Very colorful, exotic foreign locales, large themes. There are some critics, I think, who love these films, as many viewers do, and think this is the apex of his career. There are others, however, who really feel that his significant body of work was this period in his life, the 1940s, the 1950s, when he was making these films based on Dickens, when he was working with Noel Coward, during World War II. He made 4 films with Noel Coward, I think. Brief Encounter being one of them, which is still highly regarded as a film. These, In Which We Serve with Noel, which also was written by Noel Coward. So people fall into those 2 categories. I think certainly I, as a child of the 50s and 60s and 70s, have always thought of David Lean as the guy who made those really big sweeping epics. Mm-hmm. But there's this whole other body of work, which fortunately for us now is available on DVD, Blu-ray, or Netflix, I would hope, that allows us to really get a richer perspective on his talents.
So the next 4 movies will be?
I'm sorry, Matt?
The next 4 movies?
Oh, well, they're in the discussion stage. And if it comes to pass, it'll be under the guise of sophisticated suspense.
Can we vote? Yes or no?
Not that democratic.
There's a lot that goes into it.
I'd like to say a word about John Howard Davies. Here's a young man who was pretty much plucked from obscurity and plunked into this film as the lead character. He had a very short career as an actor, appearing in only 3 films after Oliver Twist. One was entitled The Rocking Horse Winner in 1949, Tom Brown's School Days, and The Magic Box in 1951. And that pretty much was it. As a young adult, he served in the Royal Navy and held a variety of jobs, city clerk, carpet salesman, lubricating oil salesman, whatever that means. In 1967, he returned to show business as a prolific producer and director of British television series, which he continued to do until 1994. Shows he was involved with include Monty Python's Flying Circus, Steptoe and Son, Fawlty Towers, The Benny Hill Show, and Mr. Bean.
Oh, wow.
Davies.
Wasn't Steptoe and Son the inspiration for Sanford and Son?
Yes.
I thought so.
Davies died in 2011 at age 72, a cancer victim.
On that I note.
Any questions? Any comments? Was this as impressive as Mr. Champlin and I think it is?
Oh, yes, I love that. Definitely.
Yes.
I must have seen it in 1948 when I was maybe 9 or something like that, and my sister was 2 years older. And
Oh, stop, Justine. Really?
What?
I said, stop, Justine. Really?
And I thought there were going to be more of scenes of the boys at the orphanage asking for more soup. But my sister and I were so inspired by that, we went to the dime store and bought bowls and a big spoon. And, is that you? That's you. And we insisted on having our dinner all in that bowl. And then he would say, may we please have some more? And we don't know how long that went on. But I mean, it must have been weeks. And we wouldn't eat out of anything else except our OT bowls.
Well, did you get more, or did you get sent off to the coffin maker?
No, we got more.
Okay.
But they were always called our OT bowls.
Yeah.
The Oliver Twist.
I got the reference.
You got it? Okay.
Yes, sir.
I think after seeing the silent films that you've brought here before, I became very much aware of facial expressions and how much is told with the face. And that was one thing I noticed very keenly in this film too. Is that how much of the story was told with the face, as you mentioned about sight.
Yeah, thank you.
That's impressive.
This is a very economical film. You already know that the guy who's going to apprentice Oliver is an undertaker, not because he says that he's an undertaker, but because he pulls out a snuff box that's in the shape of a coffin. You know, and you know, again, there are many moments like that where you're right. I mean, you know, and faces. You know, think about the faces of the children as Oliver is getting ready to go up and ask for more. And the cuts to the girls and the boys. And then the cut to the quivering cane or stick of the guy who's supervising that. You know, talk about menace. You know, they go from the faces of these kids who are all like, obviously he's going to be trounced if he doesn't do this, because he drew the straw. But then to that quivering stick, you know, they don't even have to show the face of the guy. Just that thing that's quivering, he's just ready. Yeah, really remarkable.
Do we know how much was on location and how much was set?
Well, they have some pretty big studios in Great Britain, and I would assume that the majority of this was shot in the studio. What looked like outdoor scenes, I would also presume were outdoor scenes, especially when you're talking about architecture. There had to be locations that could be used that would indeed exemplify or pretty much replicate a time period much older than 1948.
Yeah,
But I don't know specifics about how much was shot in studio and how much was shot out in the world.
It occurred to me, and I may have to defer to Justine as the expert on this, but it occurs to me that Britain, this film almost reflected what Britain was, the situation in Britain at the time it was made. Britain at the end of World War II, which ended in 1945, three years before this film was released. Britain was still on rationing. Britain was still economically depressed because of the war. The war, you know, lifted the United States up, you know, as an economic power, and it really kind of crushed Great Britain. And so I know that rationing remained for several years in Britain even after the war. And so to a certain extent, I felt that this was also kind of the scenes, the street scenes, the drudgery, the darkness, was also kind of a reflection of the British attitude at that time, or might have been. I don't have any basis for that.
And not that you want to rush out and find it, but the mob scenes at the end of this version of Oliver Twist can be very ingeniously found in a 1960 British horror thriller called Flesh and the Fiends, starring Peter Cushing and Donald Pleasance. Really a classy horror thriller. It dealt with the notorious body snatchers Burke
Hare. Yes, my favorite.
And I don't know how I spotted it, but years ago I saw Flesh and the Fiends, which also was released as under the title Mania on TV. And I'm sitting there and I'm saying, this is cool, but I'm remembering these crowd scenes from some other movie. I watched this I don't know, maybe a couple of years ago. And I said, wow, they stole the sequences involving the mob chasing, looking for Robert Newton from Oliver Twist and incorporated it into their production. It was pretty neat. I want to thank you folks for coming tonight. I want to thank you for listening to Mr. Champlin and I. And to just say one more further thing about the lady's question about will there be more movies. I'd like to think there will be. It would be not. I don't want to call them film noir. It's more than that. I thought a sophisticated suspense was a very good indicator. And I think one of the titles, if indeed it comes to pass, will be Laura from 1944, the Otto Preminger movie with Dana Andrews and Gene Tierney and Vincent Price.
Under the category of sophisticated suspense, I would vote for Vertigo.
Yes, ma'am.
And I would hope that you would show them more than just once. I mean, I would like to be able to see this again. And
I understand, but I have to put on my hat here as the programmer and tell you that to find an audience for these things once is not easy. It's difficult. Classics just in this particular area here where we live, they don't summon up a lot of enthusiasm as far as attendance is concerned. So it is what it is. Give you the opportunity to see it, but I'm afraid it's probably just going to be a one-shot affair.
my daughter saw it yesterday on, what is that you all watch? YouTube. Right? Yeah, I guess it was YouTube.
Yeah, yeah. No two of the things that we presented here as of this foursome, Naked City and Oliver Twist, readily available on YouTube.
There's nothing like seeing it on the big screen.
I like it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks, folks. Good night.